Ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. I'll edit the video before this point, so it looks like we're starting from now. Good afternoon and welcome to the fourth day of Empire.Kred Live. And I'm delighted today to be talking to Nicky Kriel. Good afternoon, Nicky.
Hello. Well, it's afternoon for me as well, but it's not afternoon for you, Gary.
Good afternoon, Gary.
Greetings, greetings.
So
it's more of a general thing. You just so many people get stumbled up over time zones. We're global. It's just greetings and welcome.
Indeed, indeed. Now we're here today to talk about Twitter, and I respect the values that both of you promote on Twitter, and I'd like to talk a little bit about those. But I'd like to start off with the first question, and the first question is: I mean, Twitter came out in 2006. It's developed over the years. Where do you feel it is now, and what is the benefit of being on Twitter? And I'll take Nicky first. What's the benefit of Twitter?
I'm a little bit passionate about Twitter. In fact, very, very passionate. Twitter was my first love. It's my first social media platform that I actually got. But when I first went on it, I was quite petrified of it, to be honest, because I just didn't get it, because it looked like disjointed conversations and there were loads of links and there's loads of jargon for Twitter. And I think that's what puts a lot of people off. Twitter has changed quite a bit. I'm excited. They've just introduced a dashboard, which we haven't got in the UK. They're sort of rolling it out in the States, which I think is going to actually make a big difference to how people use it. But really, you can use Twitter any way you like. I teach people how to use Twitter for business, and especially small businesses. There are so many opportunities, but you need to think of it as a way to have conversations with people and to build relationships, rather than just spewing out spam about your business. It's not a free advertising tool. So it's really, for me, Twitter is about having conversations. It's a great opportunity to listen to what people need, to talk directly to people, and to connect with anybody in the world. And it's amazing how many opportunities. I'm sure Gary's got loads of stories. I've had so many amazing things that have happened to me through being on Twitter. So that's why I'm a little bit in love with Twitter, and it will always be, special to me.
Wonderful, Gary.
Wow, it's been an amazing ride. I started in Twitter in 2008, so just about when it had just gotten started. I was introduced by Dave Laconte, who was a master of persuasion. We said, hey, get on there, but like I said, in the beginning, nobody knew what they were doing. And so it was just kind of just all random stuff. And I just sort of stumbled into, sharing messages and being able to connect with people because, I had a personal story where it was 2008. I was doing massage for special needs clients, and the funding for that program had disappeared. So my funding went away, my emotional support went away. And so I went into a funk and was locked into the couch for quite a while. And I'd been studying personal development since 1989, so I went to my document of motivational messages. And I started reading those to lift myself up, to get myself off the couch. But then when I started tweeting those things, people started responding. And so I was doing little mini coaching sessions, I was connecting people, and then that just really started going with the connections. And that was a tap for me to be able to say, okay, you're going to use Twitter from now on to be able to teach people and motivate them. But, the changes, like everything else, change happens gradually in all relationships. Twitter was developed as a global town square. It can be anything to anybody. Just like if you went to a Saturday market or something, there's people selling, jams and sweaters and rugs, and they're singing songs or political rants, and you can find all of them on Twitter. And that's the amazing thing, is you can carve out your own little niche and you all have a level playing field.
Indeed, everybody's got an equal voice.
Yeah, you got to hunt, I'm still aspiring to, do a lot of mind mastery, a lot of work. So, Tony Robbins is an idol of mine, but, he has the same 140 characters as I do. So we haven't, So we have an opportunity to create a differentiation, and that's what Twitter and social media has done with that level playing field. Our clients have bazillions of choices. There are a lot of people who do the same things that we do, and we have an opportunity to be able to build bridges with them. So they're looking for a way to connect. Who do I want to invest with? Who do I want to spend some time with? And it's not, it's not like putting an ad in the Sunday paper anymore. You have to be able to show up here. I always relate it to dating. You got to be able to date and go through there. And part of the act of dating is seduction, not molestation. So if you're putting out there and pushing yourself out there all the time, that's molestation. That's asking for it's trying to close a deal on the first date.
Yeah.
And very little times it's successful, but the relationships that develop over time, very, very beneficial.
So, Nicky, do you use pull marketing in your approach?
Do I use what?
Do you pull people in rather than pushing out?
Attraction, yes. Basically, I suppose I put out content, which is tips. They tend to be tips on Twitter, or how to, what I think people will find useful, because you've always got to start with the person reading. It's not about you, it's about the person who's reading your tweet. And so you should always write a tweet for them, not for you. So like, even if you're trying to, obviously as a business, you're trying to get your message out, but you've always got to start with your customer and the person who's reading the tweet. So, and I've found just by being consistent, showing up, sometimes like it's pictures of me going on walks. I've been taking lots of pictures of cows recently. There's a charity thing where they've got fiberglass cows that artists have done, and then they're around the area. So I've been taking lots of pictures of cows. So I've got a lot of conversations going sort of like with that, and sort of like because of that connection, as well as, so I'm a real person, as well as I've got my business hat on. So that's, I think the gem about Twitter is you can do that. You can be authentic and real. So you can give business stuff, but you can also give personal stuff. But obviously, I wouldn't recommend airing your dirty laundry in public, or sort of like, and be mindful that you are publishing. So sort of like, obviously you wouldn't want to say anything that you wouldn't want to be as a headline of a newspaper or appear in court. So you have to have that sensibility about it. But generally, if you come from a good place, you tend to attract people who like you. And they did some research where they had people who were positive and doing positive stuff, and people who are negative and whinging about things. And the group of people who are positive and positive messages had far more followers, far more engagement, far more retweets than the negative group of people. You will always find negative people, but they tend to draw other negative people. So if you want to be whingy and complain about everything, there's a group of people who will join you, who have been whinging and complaining. If you want to be positive and upbeat about life, you'll attract people who like that, and you draw people to you who like you, if you are yourself.
Right. And I think one of the things that, was important thing to follow up on that is, again, when people are looking for that connection, there are a number of things. I worked with a client who is a big Star Wars fan. So we integrated a lot of Star Wars quotes into his stream. Yeah. And people connected to him because they felt they were in love with the same thing. There's a speech coach, a friend of mine, who had a bout of lung cancer that she felt was derived from a gluten problem. So in addition to her speech and communication messages she sends out there, she's also gone on a gluten-free program. And so she's attracted people because it's, we're all having kind of the same problems. And so if we can find some way to be able to give them links and give them a reason to come closer, and they want to be able to see that part of your personality.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree with both of you, because it is being real and actually getting your own personal story out, but not pushing it too much, and trying to stay positive. Because we know in the UK that if you send out a negative tweet, then you're going to get stamped on. So staying positive is a good idea, especially with our current political situation. Now,
yeah, I think that the main thing is you're not going to attract everybody to you, and you're not going to get on with everybody, and that's okay. And you just got to accept that not everybody is going to, you know, sort of like be on the same wavelength as you are. So it's better to attract people who are like you, and to do that, you need to actually let a bit of your personality show through. And I think a mistake a lot of people do is they just try and be bland and, you know, sort of like safe, and that's not quite, you know, sort of, that doesn't mean you can actually relate to the person and connect with the person.
Yeah, there's a couple different things, because I know that we just had a discussion about that last night about, you know, I've been sending a lot of motivational messages out there, and I have a very diverse audience, you know, over 140,000 followers who have come through there, and they enjoy those messages, and it's from anywhere from Tea Party to rappers, and I've made an impact in all of their lives from every country around the world. But there's also a point about, I don't know, it was one of my rules that I always say that if you're on Twitter for business, leave religion and politics off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have a tendency to push people away. You know, I worked with a client who did fire retardant clothing, and they wanted to be able to share Bible verses because it was a very strong message for them. But then I just asked them, I says, does your product save more, you know, people other than Christians?
It's a good point. It's something you've got to be aware of, isn't it?
Yeah. So
polarizing opinion.
So if you can be able to create your market to that narrow niche, that's great. But if you need a broader audience, then you need to be able to you know, tone it down a little bit. But I think there's a lot to be said too about maybe being a little edgy, because I think that comes at a tipping point where people will say, some people aren't going to like you, and they're going to be trolls, and they're going to go out there, and they're probably not going to do business with you anyways. Mm-hmm. But then also when those trolls attack you, your audience, your loyal your fans will come out and start defending you.
Yeah. So
that's a huge opportunity on your branding and what you've created for yourself.
All right. Thank you for the gift, Skip. It's very kind of you. People can give the host gifts, which is wonderful. Nicky and I were just talking about it. You can actually, I'm not suggesting Skip does this, but they can actually pay for the gifts, and the host gets paid from that. But never mind.
Oh,
right now, back to Twitter, and one of the main reasons for bringing you both together is that a lot of people do still find Twitter a bit of a mystery. And if you were to say, right, as you do to your clients, I mean, you've both got clients who you help every single day of the week to get their business out there. I'm going to ask the $64,000 question. How do you make an impression on Twitter, Nicky?
Well, I think it's a case of actually knowing who your market is and what they're interested in. So having a clear, it's starting with the end in mind. So you can go on Twitter and just randomly say things. And I know when I started, because I was doing coaching as well, live coaching, and then it's just because everybody kept on asking me, because I was getting radio interviews and invited to be a podcast guest in Canada and all sorts of interesting things. So people kept on saying, how do you do that on Twitter? And I knew there was a big need at that stage. This is way back in 2010 when I started teaching people how to use Twitter for business. But the main thing to get noticed is to actually have a clear idea of what you want to get out there and being consistent. So you need to show up on a daily basis. So you cannot, and I'd say more than on a daily basis, but you cannot just like set up a whole schedule of tweets and then disappear and somehow expect it to generate business. People do business with people, and you actually need to be ready to have conversations with people and connect with people and like people. And generally, you can't just go and put your stuff out and expect people just automatically to follow you or to like your stuff. You actually need to go and find the right type of people that you want to mix with or connect with, And you need to start conversations. You need to start talking to people. And it's not that different from having any other conversations with people. I always recommend you talk in plain English, you know, sort of like skip the jargons. You know, for me, you just write. It's got to be nice and simple and easy for people to understand, because sometimes people try and cram almost a paragraph into 140 characters and it doesn't make any sense. Or you have to sit there and try and work out what they're talking about. People don't have time to interpret what you're saying. So you need to just keep it simple. You know, it's conversation. It's like you can talk about anything you like, but you do need to just have a clear idea of what you want to get out of it for business. Obviously, if you're just using it for social, then, you know, there's no need. But if you're using it for business and you're spending your time and you're pretending, I'm going to say, because lots of people go, oh, I've been on Twitter for, you know, I'm doing marketing. But they're not actually, they're just having random conversations, or they're just listening to conversations. But you do need to get involved. You cannot sit on the sidelines and just either read your tweets or just click on follow and click retweet or like buttons. You actually need to talk to people.
Gary, your take on the getting noticed?
Well, this, you know, it's there's no one answer. There's actually a course. I did a 12-hour course on how to be able to do it. But like Nicky said, probably the first thing that you got to know is, what's your purpose? Why are you here? And a lot of us have a lot of different interests, but I really recommend that you pick one lane and go with that, because people want to be able to connect with experts. You know, I had one client who was a landscaper and a massage therapist. Now, I can see the connection as a massage therapist. I can see the connection, but most people aren't. And so that would just confuse people, and confused minds don't buy. So you have to be able to pick that one lane and be able to go. The connections, you know, the most important thing that people do is when they go check you out is that first impression. So what are they seeing? They're seeing your bio, your picture, and your banner.
Okay.
And if they suck, they're clicking off. You're not follow worthy, they're going. So your picture needs to be current, something that people can be able to recognize you in the grocery store.
A picture of you, should I say, rather than a logo or,
Yeah, people don't connect with logos. Unless you're a Fortune 100 company, nobody cares about your logo. You can stick your logo up into your banner. My wife's a graphic artist, and you know, I want to be able to support graphic artists, but you can be able to do it in a banner. They've given us a billboard to be able to explain to people what we can do, and you only got 4 to 10 seconds to get their attention. So many people are not using that banner effectively on what they can do. Your bio is vital, because it's all keywords. 90% of anybody who's online are looking for solutions for their problems. So they're typing into Google and Bing and Yahoo, and Twitter's a magnificent search engine. Is, you know, the terms that you put on there need to be something that people are going to be looking for. Writing something like, I like to work with people who do this, you've wasted a lot of the 160 characters on something that nobody is going to type in. So you got to be able to let people find you, be able to go through there.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about that, Nicky, when we chatted the first time on Blab all those months ago, because that's part
you need to have your keywords. But I think in your bio, you've got to be aware that that is your first impression, and people might click on that and then make that decision whether to follow you or not based on what you've got in your bio. So if you some bios that would put people for something that looks as though you're going to sell something to them, because quite often you have almost sales pitches at people. So it feels as though you think, oh, if I follow that person, they're just going to be spamming me. And I've seen bios like that. And then also there's a trend now, which I really don't like, is just hashtagging, you know, so the bio is just full of hashtags and words.
No, you just become hash holes.
Yeah. like that one. So you basically want to sum up. So be mindful of your keywords, and obviously it's important to put your keywords because so often people forget the most obvious keywords to put in there, and they haven't got them in there.
Yeah.
But you try and create something that makes you approachable, as well as tells people what you do.
Yeah, a lot of the keywords should be some of the same things that you're using on your website. It's the same premise, like you talked about. It's networking, it's connecting, it's a lot of the same rules in real life, but you're just putting it up on a screen.
Yeah.
You know, another thing too, when you talked about making that impression is, I call it the empty parking lot syndrome.
Yep.
When I lived in Wisconsin, I used to take what my kids called aimless excursions to nowhere. So this is before cell phones, and we would just drive around, and you'd get hungry. And so there, you look for a billboard, look for a sign for a restaurant, and you say, oh, Ma's Restaurant, 5 miles. You get to Ma's Restaurant, and there's nobody in the parking lot. You're not going to stop. You're going to drive on to be able to find something else. So your tweets are going to be vital. That tells people that they can be able to pull in and they can stay for a while.
Yeah.
And so if you haven't tweeted in days or months, they're driving by. If they don't have something they can connect with, they're going, so there's, I've got a formula of what your tweets should be able to do, but you need to be able to give them something, especially those last 10, 15 tweets that show up when your page opens.
Yeah.
You got to be very mindful, even if you're only live tweeting and there's a gap 4-6 hours when you're not there, you got to make sure that those last 2 or 3 tweets are something that you want people to see.
Yeah, it's also, now that you can pin a post and pin a tweet to the top, it's really worthwhile putting your best tweet up there, or because that's the first tweet that people will notice when they get to your profile.
Good advice. Yeah. I mean, I do that with the blabs. Today's show was at the top of my Twitter profile, and has been since I sent the tweet out first thing this morning. Yeah. Blogs,
ebooks, shows, anything that you want really to be able to get attention, just pin it up there and leave it for a while. And people will retweet that all the time because they will see the first impression. And that's another thing, like we see on Empire, where people don't get everything else, is they don't give you something neutral that you can share.
Yeah.
So they come on and they want you to be able to tweet their promotion. Oh, here, tweet my affiliate link for this thing and everything else. Is, well, you haven't built the trust and rapport. So, who's going to be able to promote that unless you're willing to be able to support somebody else and be able to invest in the relationship?
Yeah. That's key on Empire.Kred, isn't it? Because Empire.Kred is where we're all connected, and we enjoy our time there, and we spend too much time there. But we are working because we're actually building relationships, aren't we?
Yeah. Very definitely.
Yeah, that's one of the big things that I see in doing missions on Empire is that I've got an opportunity to go and visit a lot of different sites. So I can be able to support people who are putting good messages out there. I can like and share and comment and do a lot of other things. But also as a coach, I can be able to see what's working well and what's not working. And so for people who they're not using it even to be able to say, okay, well, how come nobody's clicking on my stuff? Well, go look at somebody whose stuff is getting clicked and go adapt it. It's a free classroom, basically. All you got to do is go click and you collect leads that you can invest in and get more to make more.
Yeah.
You've enjoyed Empire.Kred, Nicky.
Yes, I do.
Why?
I like the community aspect of it. I'm not, sort of give me a gun and sort of go and shoot people. It's not my type of thing. But give me a game where, and it is a game, but you actually get to meet people. And I've connected with so many people. Obviously, I do a lot of missions. So sometimes you do it on manual process, but there are quite a lot of people that have got really fond feelings for, and that's just because of small little interactions. And I'm always surprised how few people leave comments on people's profiles or leave comments in on the missions, etc. And you're missing out an opportunity to connect, even if it's just a simple thank you. Each time you leave a comment, there's that little small warm fuzzy feeling that you have with somebody. It's a chance for somebody to see your face. And with Twitter, it works like that as well, in terms
Indeed.
of it's those small little steps that build a relationship. It's not that wham bam, you know, sort of thank you, or the molesting. I love that analogy, Gary. It's not the molesting, it's the little soft touches, the small points of contact. And with Empire.Kred, I think that is so important, to those little small touches that you're making with people or continuously. Because why would somebody support? Like I've looked at some Twitter missions, and when I've gone click through to the tweet, I've looked at the tweet, and I'm thinking, well, I really don't want to share that. There's nothing, because I've got to think about when I share stuff on Twitter, the people who are following me, I've got a responsibility to them to share something that I think has value to them. So yes, I will support people, but I've also I'm conscious that if it's completely off, you know, has no relevance to anybody, and it's completely, you know, that doesn't make sense, then I'm not going to do it. I might interact with the tweet in that case, so I might sort of like reply, or, you know, go click the like, but I won't necessarily share the tweet with my followers if I don't think there's any value, or if the link, because I always click on links before I share them.
Yeah, no, it's important, because like you said, it's a paraphrasing of an old quote. It takes like 20, 30, 50,000 tweets to be able to build a reputation, and one to ruin it. So I'm not going to let, you know, somebody new who will just pop on there to be able to ruin the reputation that I have. And it probably wouldn't make that much difference with the following that I've attracted, but you know, why jeopardize it? Because even if you lose a little bit, you lose a lot. And that's one of the, you know, another factor of big lists on Twitter, you know, and there's always a discussion about, you know, should I have a big list or should I have this smaller list kind of thing? And I'm a big fan of big lists. Because of the fact, you know, I'm coming from a place of service, I'm looking to connect. I know that I'm providing these positive messages to people, and I'm going to touch their lives whether they work with me or not. You know, one of the messages that I got a couple of years ago, a response back, a girl said, "I can never thank you enough for what your tweets have done for me." And she had seen one of my Just for Today messages at a time where she was contemplating suicide. And she changed her mind based on that tweet. So we can change the world. We can change lives with a single tweet. And it's important to be able to do that. And I think what that happens is that people watch that, and they watch us sending the messages out there, and then they want to be able to connect with that positive energy we put out there. Because everybody we're connected to is the gatekeeper for everybody else that they know. I'm not going to work, that girl will never work with me, but if she knows somebody in her group or her audience who needs me, she's going to be very easy to be able to recommend me to somebody else because of the reputation and because of the helpfulness that I've portrayed over the years. So all social media really is a marathon, and you have to be able to look at it. You can't come out and say, oh, well, I'm going to come on for 30, 60 days, and what's the ROI? The ROI is connection and relationships. And if you're going to look for a dollar sign, go back to TV, go back to the Sunday newspaper to be able to go through that. You know, this is relationships.
The number of times people said, oh, I tried Twitter for 2 weeks and it didn't work. You have to do something. And when I started on Twitter back in 2009, I committed to doing 1 tweet a day. Every day I'm going to go onto Twitter and do 1 tweet. And from there, I mean, obviously I've done substantially more than 1 tweet a day, but it was just actually going, okay, I'm going to show up, I'm going to do a tweet. And sometimes it was difficult. And when I was starting out, it was really difficult to try and think of what should I say, what should I share? Whereas, you know, sort of like now it's it's easy, and I've got certain things that I'll tweet about, but I'll interact, and there's tweet chats that I take part in, etc. So there's loads and loads of things that you can do, sort of to keep you going with that.
Well,
Yeah.
it's important because I know that it's one of the big questions I always get, how often we should tweet. And I tell people, if you're on Twitter for business and you're not tweeting at least 20 times a day, you're invisible.
See,
Absolutely. Okay, well, now here's the formula. Don't jump.
Yeah.
Because again, it's not about you. So those 20 tweets, like 8 of them should be retweets. 5 of them are replies, people who are responding, and replies and reach outs. Because people are looking for engagement. And an important thing to remember for a lot of people, you're not going to get engagement unless you give it first. So you got to go find somebody who's tweeting something the way that you like and comment them. Oh, I love your blog, or I love your banner. I love some, a compliment is a great way to be able to make that connection. Then you want to be able to share some articles that aren't necessarily, hey, here's an article on how my juice can cure your conchus of the bonkus. It's, you want to be able to share articles. So if you're about health, then give us Mayo Clinic. Give us something that substantiates that you're a health expert. Now, this is important too, because I think it happens a lot of people is they try to sell too fast. And I tell people that you have to earn the right to be able to promote yourself. So like NPR and PBS here in the States, public, they're on 24/7, 365. So when they do fundraisers a couple times a year, we don't mind because they've given us good content. Same thing here. Give good content. And I tell them, unless you've got 2,000 tweets and 2,000 followers, you haven't earned the right yet to promote yourself because you haven't learned how to tweet. You haven't learned the energy, the language, how to get your thoughts down into a smaller aspect. Your audience hasn't had a chance to be able to connect with you. So you need to be able, so like your answer, how do you get noticed? There's 12 hours. There's an awful lot. And then you put, then it becomes an 80-20 rule. So after you've earned that right and have that 2,000, 5,000 tweets and followers, then 20% can be about you. Everything else,
I use that.
everything else is about everybody else, but you have to be able to earn the right to be able to share that 20% so they can connect with you first.
I tend to tell people like 1 in 5 about you and your business, or about something to connect with you. The others are sharing useful content, resharing, or conversations with people. So it's just like 1 in 5 generally, just as a rule, just because hands are easy to remember. And I always get people to check every now and then, to check their tweets to see how much stuff is about them, because quite often people have, say, blog content just going out all consistently, link. And people don't see the engagement or interaction and talking.
Yeah, I've seen that even, unfortunately, a lot of people on Kred, Empire.Kred, they'll put tweets out to news feeds and a lot of other articles, and there's no engagement. And it's like, okay, and you can see there's no retweets, there's nothing. And that's why, you need to be able to have that blend. And that's why all my clients, we tell them, we need to have motivational messages in there, something that's a connection of you, messages that relate to what you do and your business. Because people are looking for a connection, and they, why do we need another news feed? We can flip on the TV, we can go find those things ourselves.
Indeed. Now, has Mark Shaw come to your notice, Gary?
I'm sorry?
Mark Shaw.
Name sounds familiar.
Could do. Yeah, he's a, sorry, I'm not going to say it on recorded video, but he's on Twitter in the UK, and he wrote a blog the other day, which I'd like to run by you. And the blog was saying Twitter has no conversation these days.
He's full of crap. He's full of crap.
I was going to say, if you think it's not got a conversation, it might be because nobody's responding to him.
Right.
It's not necessarily that people aren't talking to each other, because they do.
They are, and that's one of the biggest things. I've had, connections all around the world since almost day one on Twitter. But you have to put yourself out there. You have to be available. And what I would guess, dude, I'd have to go back and look at his page and look at everything else. And I could probably see that if he's not engaging with anybody, like we just said, if he's not engaging, he's not going to get engagement. You just can't put it out there and say, hey, come here, look at me, look at me, look at me. It's like there's a billion other people, like we just mentioned. There's a billion other people doing that.
Yeah.
Your clients are looking, they're looking for connections. And
and as Neil, Sergeant TCS, serving UK policeman, has just said, we're still having great conversations. You get out what you put in.
yes.
So the onus is on you, isn't it? Not on everybody else.
No.
But it's like, I know I use an analogy when I'm teaching people about Twitter so they can get it, is I would say, if you imagine, this is for people who are not familiar with Twitter, that if you're moving into a new house in a completely new area where you don't know anybody, and as you're moving in, your next door neighbor pops in and says, oh, I'm having a party this evening and I've invited all my neighbors. So most people would say, and I ask around the room, would you go to the party? And most people go, yeah, I'll go to the party. So you arrive at the party and the hostess greets you nicely and then she's off. She's dealing with drinks and talking to other people, and you're left on your own at the party. And I said, what do you do? And most people at this point will say, I talk to people, but I point out that they could leave. But if they left, they would, miss out on that opportunity, or they could spend the night, nursing a drink or something and listening to conversations, but they'd go home feeling frustrated and not having met anybody. And then I talk about how you would go and meet people, because you wouldn't go up with a script and sort of like a business card and prompted. You'd either listen into conversations that people are already having and join the conversation, and people will start talking to you and about you if you're taking part of the conversation, or you find somebody who looks friendly and approachable and start a conversation with them. Exactly. And I think quite often people don't, they're almost on the outside of Twitter, so they're not getting that involvement. As soon as you start talking to people and connecting with people and having real conversations, I have met so many wonderful people through Twitter. I can't, it's, I've got business from it. Yes, that's nice, but it's the human connections. And especially I work from home. And so it's nice to actually have real people who have conversations that, sort of like, and I've had so much useful, helpful advice from people that people just sort of bending over backwards to help me with, if I've got a problem and I need solving, needed a venue, somebody negotiated a price for me because I said, oh, I've tried that person and the price is a bit high, and they actually phoned up the venue and got a better price for me. So I've had loads of wonderful things happen through Twitter, and I think anybody who's been on Twitter and is actually having conversations, will say the same things in terms of serendipity and people connecting. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I know. Just today I had 2 invitations for other podcasts that show up in my direct messages. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, I never check my DMs because there's so much spam. And as well, they've cut the spam down a lot. And it's like, you have to be able to sift through the sand to be able to go find the gems. Yeah. And so to go through there, you're missing a lot of things if you're not checking the DMs. But, even to go on to your point about the party, because I use a football stadium analogy. And so, if you went to a stadium and there's 100,000 people there, are you going to want to know every conversation that's going on?
No.
Yeah. And that's where people get confused, is when they go look at that news feed or all their friends, and it's just everything is there. You can't possibly keep up with that. And
I
so
was, sorry, I'm butting in, so go.
So, well, I won't let you, but
take your time.
But that's where you want to be able to look at, like you said, find the conversations. So you can be able to search Twitter, You can use the search box. You can use the advanced search. Again, what conversations do you want? Do you want to have about marketing? Do you want to have Twitter tips? Do you want a massage? Whatever it is, you can go find those conversations. And I'm a big proponent of lists. I work off of lists all the time, so I have a people that I know, like, and trust that I can be able to go into that list and retweet, and I want to keep up with them. I'll use Hootsuite, and I'll go and I'll bring up all of those lists and bring them down there, and it's manageable. And I think people get overwhelmed because they see that myriad of people. Oh, if I start getting 100,000, 100 people, 500, 5,000 people, it becomes overwhelming to them. But you got to be able to step out and say, you're not going to follow all of those conversations, so stop it.
I think maybe up to 60 to 100 people you can probably follow without filtering conversations. But you really want to find the conversations that are relevant. And if you've got limited time, you actually want to use your time in the best possible way. So, and that's with people that are important to you.
Yep. And there's some other things too, and it always brings up a conversation about like automation, and people will throw flags up, and so just just tell you, so, number of my clients, we automated their tweets and put that out there, and that saves them 20 to 30 hours a month that they would have to be able to put those tweets out there, and they've invested that time back into engagement. And that's where they've gotten business.
Yeah.
So you can create a balance with automation and live tweeting, but it's very important that you have to be there. You got to check in there a couple times a day and see who's responding to you. Check your mentions, check your replies, check your retweets, and respond back.
Now, I'm a proponent of blending. I think the danger is with automation is that a lot of people switch it on and then walk away and never go in, never check for that. And then you've got some purists who say, oh no, every single tweet needs to be live. That's all very well, but if you've got a business to run, you've got a business to run.
You can't do it. You can't do it. But
I respond to people, so I will. My Twitter was open at the moment and I can see a notification, but I'm not going to go look at it right now. But I have, so I will check on my phone several times a day, and I will have my tweets, so my notifications are set up. So I will go and check throughout the day when I'm working on my laptop, and respond to people as quickly as I can who respond. It doesn't mean I'm on Twitter all the time and spending hours and hours on Twitter. But if somebody's talking to you, you need to respond and interact with them.
Right. And I don't think that you have to be able to respond back in real time all the time. So I've turned off my notifications. I'll go back there when it's convenient for me, because if I get distracted, I can't go back to what I was doing. That's just me. It's a time management thing. I have to have blocks and be able to do that. And you got to be able to know yourself well enough, because there's a lot of rabbit holes in all of social media.
Yes.
You can run off into stuff and lose days and weeks and months and just being able to do it, and you're not accomplishing what you want to accomplish. So, set timers, use lists, connect with people, follow people who are doing things well already and learn from them. Like I said, since 2008, you're there since 2009, we've learned a lot through observation. So you follow people who've been there for a while, who are professing and sharing some knowledge that they've done, and learn from them. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've already broken it up for you.
I know. I think that the thing is, I know there's comments, and I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. Neil. I know that there are lots of people who don't think automation is authentic or whatever, but what I've got automated is Twitter tips, which it's amazing how many people still thank me, because same tweets. So that's automated because people find it helpful. And if somebody's on first thing in the morning, they're not necessarily going to see the tweet that goes out late in the day, or so people on Twitter at different times. So even though I may have the same tips going out, people are still thanking me for them, reading it and responding. And my automated DM thing, which is my little rant against automated DM. Thank you.
There's so much.
yeah, so like, but I have a rant about that, and every time that one goes out, it gets a lot of conversations. So I take part in the conversations and, you know, interact with people. It's just a conversation starter. But I am on Twitter, you know, so I do respond. I'm there every single day, no matter what.
You know, one of the first things that I started doing for automation was I didn't like to be able to promote myself. So to share my blogs, even stuff that I wasn't selling anything, but I had problems hitting that enter button to send it on my promotion, because I figured, who's going to listen to my stuff? Who's going to want to read this? So one of the ways that I always, you know, for me, I automated my blogs. I automated my Twitter tips. I automated my just for today messages, because that girl and the suicide, that was, you know, that was God. That was the universe bringing that message to her when it happened. I put it up there, made it available. But just that trepidation about trying to be able to promote yourself and whether or not to be able to do it. So, you know, just, you know, automated that, you know, Hootsuite, Twitter, you can be able to set them up and just set up a couple of days, and then you can know that that's going out, and you spend the rest of your time and in a more relaxed way having conversations.
Well, I find, I mean, I get my assistant to, if I've got like an event coming up or something that I need to tweet, because I'm so sporadic about what I do, and I tend to be in the moment when I'm doing it, that I forget to do, I suppose, the bread and butter stuff that I need to do. So I tend to get somebody else to schedule tweets to get out for me, you know, if I've got an event, so that I don't have to think about it. So I can just do the nice chatty part, which is what I enjoy. It's
more fun. Yeah, you go with our strengths.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Indeed. Well, amazingly, you've both been talking together for about 50 minutes. And it's been a learning experience. I thank you both for taking part today. Now, two things. I think if we sort of start to wind down now, and I'm going to be most annoying and ask you both for your top 3 Twitter tips.
Okay, Gary first.
Or don't, whichever way you want to call it. Just a parting shot, as it were.
Well, the top 3 is, you know, there's so many, but that first impression, so your picture, bio, and banner are there. You have to have a daily presence. If you're not there every day, you're invisible, and nobody's going to connect with you. It's like, if you don't show up for your relationship every day, that attention starts to fade going through there. And share things of value to other people. You know, it's about them. Think about coming from service. How can you serve them? How can you help them solve their problems? And by doing that, you're going to attract people who are going to be, who are going to want to work with you because of that, the messages that you put out. So if you're going to limit me to 3, I think that's where I'm going to go.
I know, I think that's brilliant.
He's done hers, and no worries.
Okay. One of my things is about followers, because so many people ask, how do you get followers? And getting followers is not that important. It's like people put a lot of, you know, importance on it. But if you want to, rather than asking how to get followers, you find, how do I find interesting people to follow?
Okay.
You need to go out and follow the right people first. There's a good chance if you follow people, they'll follow you back. They will read your
yep.
But you ideally want to, rather than passively waiting for the right people to follow you, you need to be proactive about going out there and doing that. I'm going to say, pin a tweet to the top of your profile. So few people have done that. Yeah. And I know we talked about Twitter lists. It's amazing how many people are not using Twitter lists. Twitter lists help you to filter conversation so that you can actually pay attention. So it's like, well, quietening the fire hose. It's actually being able to focus so that you paying attention to people who are important to you, or to the message that's important to you. So if I'm restricted to 3, I know both of us could go.
Yeah, well, we could roll on. And, you know, one of the things I have a Twitter list of probably close to 3,000 people now from Empire Avenue.
Yeah, I had a look at that. I was going to recommend people, if people want to find out the Empire.Kred, if you go onto Gary, sorry, can I do you mind?
Yeah, go ahead. No, please.
If you go onto Gary Loper's Twitter account, under his profile, you'll see lists. And if you click on that list, one of those lists will be Empire.Kred people. You've got a few, I think you've got a few different ones in there, but there's one with just under 2,000 people.
I think I've followed somebody else's, but my list, that when I go on and make new connections on Kred, I'll automatically add people to that list, regardless of what their stuff is. Because just as a way for people to keep connections. Yeah.
So have a look through Gary's list, because he's got a good list. I think I've subscribed to one or two people's Kred lists, but I don't think I've created one, and I've done all sorts of things, but I don't think I've got an Empire.Kred list, but I have subscribed to some other people. So
why do the work somebody else already did?
Exactly. You can click on the subscribe to click to subscribe to those ones, or just go through them and see which faces are familiar. You know, whose shares have you bought? You know, so like who you're interacting with, who, you know, so like who's familiar to you, and follow those people, because you're more likely to get a response from them. And the Empire.Kred community is very, very supportive. As long as you're a member of the community and actually show up and interact and give to the community.
Wonderful. Now, I'd like you both, whilst I'm talking, just to put your own website URLs into the message at the side, and they will go out with the accompanying video, because after this we will be repurposing this conversation on YouTube and on Facebook and anywhere else that will take it. And well, at the end of today's conversation, what I've got to say is this: Twitter is alive and well, conversation on Twitter is alive and well, and the two of you together over the last 50 minutes have given a great exposition of how to use Twitter. I thank you both. And if you'd like to say your thanks to our audience, and then we'll end the recording. Nicky first.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for, you know, just get in touch with me or Gary or Stephen. We're all very interactive on Twitter. So have a chat to us. So if you watch this, just tweet us or let us know that you watched it, and we'll make sure that we follow you back and talk to you. So it's like we'll sort of keep the communication open. So that, you know, can thank you, and thank you, Steve, for inviting me and Nance to organise this as well.
The team behind this deserve our thanks for getting everything together and getting promotion done and everything.
No, it's a great thing that, you know, the Kred's doing. So Stephen, I appreciate what you're doing, and I see a lot of work that you've been doing on Blab and, you know, Fire Talk, and doing a lot of other things to get those messages out there and giving people a forum to be able to talk and to be able to share that information. It's, you know, I think Nicky's the same way. You know, we're out here to be able to serve, want to be able to connect and be able to help people get the best out of it. You know, I think, you know, we've all struggled in our personal lives and other things. It's probably one of the driving factors on why we serve the way that we do. And so, you know, we're looking for connections, want to be able to do that. So, you know, I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful to be able to connect with Nicky and be able to banter. And I know that, you know, a lot of our viewpoints, it might have been a little bit off, but really, they're really all in line. They're really in line. It's just maybe a little different verbiage and different things, but that's a great thing about Twitter. It can be anything for anybody, and there's no one way to do it.
Indeed, totally. You took my end speech there. There is no one way to do it.
Yeah, so, but I just appreciate the opportunity. So connect with all of us, and happy tweeting.
Wonderful, and thank you, Kevin. We've really enjoyed ourselves over the last hour or so, and I'm sure that if I coax both Nicky and Gary, we can do this again for another Empire.Kred live in future months. Which should be wonderful, because I've got a feeling today that we've got on so well, but we've only just scratched the surface, and there's a lot of things that we could talk about. So thank you to both of you for being here today. Thank you to everybody who's watched. I look forward to everybody staying in touch, and conversation is not dead. You just need to start it. Okay, take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
And we'll see you soon. Okay, bye.
Bye.